Hello all, glad to have you here for the next reaction video. This time I'm taking a look at AmtrakGuy365's long hood forward locomotives. Gonna be learning all about the long hood forward action from past and present, I suppose. So get ready for some Southern style action and some learning.
Well, that's weird. That locomotive is running
Strange,
backwards.
I know.
So is this one, and that one, and this one, and that one, and this one, and that one.
What is going on here?
It's everywhere.
Well, Jared from literally seconds ago, I'm glad you asked. While it may look quite peculiar, this is an operating practice known as long hood forward. Peculiar.
And a slug in the background.
This is an operating practice known as long hood forward. As American railroads began their transition to diesel power in the 1930s and 40s, the road switcher model emerged in the form of the American Locomotive Company's RS-1. It could serve on road or main line trains just as well as it could switch yards and locals. Unlike previous switcher designs, it featured a new short hood containing electrical equipment, a toilet, and an optional steam generator. Then there was the long hood, containing the prime mover, generator, and other major components. This setup allowed the RS-1 to comfortably operate in either direction without the need to turn around. The model was built to run long hood forward.
Hey, I wasn't aware that Sioux Line had this generic purple livery. More I know, and more I learn, I guess. But yeah, I'm also familiar with some SD40s having extended nose compartments to house radio equipment and whatnot. I think what they were for. I know the NS would later inherit a few of them from a leasing company, but I'm sure that all of them are gone by now. Well, actually, yes, they are last time I checked. Last few were retired for rebuilding. So, RIP to those.
Where the long hood was the front as denoted by an F on the frame. Subsequent road switchers by Electromotive Division, Baldwin, and Fairbanks Morse also utilized the short and long hood setup, but many railroads opted to run long hood forward. Steam locomotive crews were used to the cab being at the rear, so at the time it just made sense to follow tradition.
Yep.
There was also the additional benefit that in the event of a head-on collision, there was more space to protect the crew.
Right.
Ultimately, it was up to the railroad's preference in what they'd be using the locomotives for. In the case of the Central Railroad of New Jersey, their RS-3s in commuter service had dual control stands either side of the cab, so the engineer wouldn't have to awkwardly turn around with the controls behind them while running in reverse.
Yeah, that'd be tedious and painful to have to do those simultaneously when trying to operate them. Yeah, having to hurt your neck and your back like that. Put a strain on them, I'm sure.
The Norfolk and Western used the same setup for shifter or
NW.
local coal trains. Instead of wasting time finding a place to turn a steam locomotive around, they could just run the diesel around their train using a siding and return home. While this long hood forward system did work, it also meant the engineer or conductor's view would be obscured around curves.
I know I've seen footage of an SD70 Ace going long hood forward at least a number of times from certain videos, and I'm sure it's not very easy having to do that with one of those things, especially with having rather flared radiators sticking out and obscuring your view. Not to mention those are decently long machines.
To combat this, the majority of new locomotive models from the 1960s onward rolled out with a lowered short hood, or low nose, and the short hood now denoted the front.
Hell, I can't even imagine doing LHF with one of those gigantic Centennial units from UP, the DDA 40Xs. God, that'd be a nightmare.
However, N&W and Southern held on to tradition, opting to order high hood units with bidirectional capabilities,
Which is good.
but predominantly ran them long hood forward. N&W made use of dual control stands, while Southern had one stand that was angled to make reverse moves slightly more comfortable on the engineer. The benefit of the high hood design meant the crew had an equal size windshield in either direction, and according to the Southern, there technically was no front end. With a low nose, there was a clearly defined front, and labor unions would have forced the Southern to turn the engines around for better crew visibility.
Not to mention the FRA or whoever eventually forced NS to start buying the wide cab design for locomotives moving forward, since by that point they had been buying only standard cabs, including standard cab -9s, until they got the wide cab variants of those moving forward.
In short, it was a loophole. N&W and Southern looked to eliminate the time it took to turn engines around, the cost of turntables, and eliminate hostler jobs. Moving to the East Coast, the Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac was a lesser-known adopter of running long hood forward. In the mid to late 1960s, their GP35 and GP40 locomotives arrived with dual control stands and a horn at each end. Even-numbered units' short hood would always face north, and odd numbers face south to avoid turning them around. This system led to several cases of running long hood forward. Crew reception was mixed on this practice. Some enjoyed the extra space up front for safety, while others loathed the lack of visibility.
And naturally, this isn't done very often anymore, mainly with locals and switching operations. Though apparently, NS has converted many of their remaining high hood GP38s for remote control operation, since I know crews don't really like operating them long hood forward anymore these days, but it still happens.
High hood, fucking assholes run the train that way. Let's put the hood up in your fucking car and drive down the road. It's safe.
In 1978,
Ronnie gonna be telling them how it is, apparently.
N&W joined the rest of the country's railroads by ordering low-nosed, short-hood forward locomotives. But in 1982, the N&W and Southern merged to create Norfolk Southern, and they continued long hood forward operations with their inherited units. NS also ordered new locomotives with a Southern-style bidirectional control stand, and one could see any number of trains or helper units running Hammerhead or Southern style. This wasn't to last, though, as after 1989, new NS locomotives were configured to run short hood forward with a standard control stand like the other Class 1s. The reduced visibility was a hazard and hassle for crews, and newer locomotives had desktop-style controls and flared radiators that made the practice impractical. But that's not to say running long hood forward was gone for good. American locomotives just aren't configured to run that way as the standard. Running long hood forward is still prevalent with maintenance trains and locals.
Yeah, like I just said. I also always appreciate seeing footage from Walt Lovey and Railroad Media Archive being used. They have some of the best railfan footage out there, and I love their stuff.
Hood forward was gone for good. American locomotives just aren't configured to run that way as the standard. Running long hood forward is still prevalent with maintenance trains and locals, or when time or the location simply doesn't permit an engine turnaround. It's a practice rooted in the train time or the location.
Okay, to be honest, seeing one of these CP Eco rebuilds leading all this CSX power like that, that's just kind of wild to me. I don't know why.
Simply doesn't permit an engine turnaround. It's a practice rooted in the transition era that fell out of favor when newer cab designs rolled around, with tradition ultimately losing out in the end. Short hood forward is simply safer and more convenient for crews. Nonetheless, it's a unique practice that's rooted itself in railroad history. Thank you to my channel members.
Is that it? Everything important out of the way? Yep. That's going to do it for the reaction, everybody. Let me know what you think down below. Original video will be in the description as always. Any bit of info and whatnot that I may have to know, you can tell me down below regarding long hood forward and whatnot. And just any piece of helpful info in general would always be greatly appreciated. So, again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.